Okay, so you should really watch my previous video, or at least the beginning of my previous video. The previous video kind of was leading to this, but they're two different subjects, which is why I decided to make two different videos about this. So I read an article about it was in the forward. It was a fellow, Paul Gallen, I think, and he said why quote-unquote liberal Jews, the word liberal was in quotes, are just as hypocritical as the religious Jews are. As far as this issue of the Kotel, Western Wall, having egalitarian prayers, it should be noted that the women of the wall are not looking for mixed-seating prayers. They're looking for Orthodox prayers where women can read the Torah, which certain factions of the of modern Orthodoxy allow. People don't know that. Now, mainstream modern Orthodoxy maybe doesn't, but none other than the chief rabbi of Israel, Shlomo Goren, said that women can form inyanim and do everything that men can do. Of course, poskim, who are, most people would admit are bigger than him, disagree with him unequivocally. But I don't forget religious freedom. And if the fact of the matter is, maybe I won't say who it was. There was someone who was respected. He was a very prominent American Rav. I mentioned him not too long ago in a story. Rather colorful, different type of character, but still highly, highly respected in Haredi circles. Who I heard a story from someone who heard it from one of his sons. That there was a funeral, and this Rav said that if you have 10 women by themselves without the men there, they could say Kaddish, because there were no sons at the funeral, the Benos Slavchad, and that the women could form a minyan and say Kaddish. This was a Rav who is very, very highly respected in the Haredi circles. And I told a story about him within the past few weeks. The Rav who told me this said that, oh, this is dangerous information you have, and it shouldn't be let out. But I feel that it's important information that needs to be out. Not necessarily because I believe everyone should follow it. Oh no, road is closed. How am I going to get to... Alright. If I would have known that, I wouldn't have taken this bridge. Maybe I should turn around and go take the Tappan Zee. I don't know. How much is this going to add? Alright, it's neither here nor there. The women, but it's well known that Shlomo Goren, who is not respected in Haredi circles, to say the least, and I'm not a fan of his personally, but I respect that he held the title of Chief Rabbi of Israel, and his Piskei Din should be at least as binding as Lau or Yosef, these guys now who call themselves chief rabbis. It's not. It's just that they're kowtowing to things that are more mainstream, and he's a little bit more independent. But they're also not following everything 100% at the same poskim that they would refer to necessarily agree with, in other issues. So it's not intellectually dishonest. All right, I'm going to follow these detours. And that being said, it just should be noted that the women of the wall are not seeking mixed prayer services. They're seeking to allow women to read the Torah. The question is, we live in a society of laws, and the laws have to be followed. And why are they doing it? What difference does it make? Are these women doing this to make a political statement, which is also fine, but they just be intellectually honest about it, or a religious statement? Because if it's a religious statement, there's nothing to stop them from opening their own synagogue and doing this in their own synagogue. Why do they have to do it at the Western Wall? And it seems to be perhaps an antagonistic thing. But on the other hand, I've always said that the Haredisha world should recognize that we are in Galus, and there is such a thing as Galus Yisrael. The Kedushas Yantiv talks about this. Galus Yisrael, that we exist in exile under people who call themselves Jews, who have Jewish identities. I'm not going to say that they're not Jews. I'm just going to say, but I'm not going to say they are either. Although they probably are. Especially if they want to read the Torah, right? They're not reading, the Book of Mormon, at the Kaisel, they want to read the Torah, they want to identify, they want to wear talesim, and they believe in one God, I hope, they're not worshiping Jesus, and they're not saying Muhammad is a prophet, and they're not bringing in, and they're not atheists. They're Jewish, Maybe their expression of Judaism is different than ours, but they are Jewish, But there is also this Galus Yisrael that, and a Charei Dashiyit, I think, should recognize this concept of Galus Yisrael, that we can't, I think Rav Soloveitchik had excuse me. Rav Soloveitchik had a pragmatic approach to this in a similar sense, that leave Israel to the Israelis. He said that he's an American and he has no right to dictate Israeli policy. Now the question is Israel a Jewish state or is it an Israeli state? Of course, I think the Haredi approach is that's an Israeli state. They do not represent us as Jews outside of Israel. And the question should be, even Jews who live in the Holy Land, how much of an impact do we have to have? And there's two Haredi approaches. The more or less, quote unquote, at least in Israel, mainstream approach is to maintain the status quo. And the more, quote unquote, radical approach, but the quote unquote mainstream recognize that the quote unquote radical are the original approach, or at least they used to recognize that, and their Gedolim recognize that what people identify as the Satmar Brisk approach is the original approach, and that the quote unquote Aguda approach, meaning Aguda recognized this and admitted this. Baron Kotler said this. Many Gedolim said this, that that what we call the Satmar approach is really the original approach. That's neither here nor there. Let's put that aside for now. No, actually, the point I want to say with that is as follows: if the Israeli society, under their laws, wants to change Kaisel to have no mechitza, that is the choice of the Israeli society. Meaning, it's not the choice of the American Jews, whether on the right or the left, but it's also not the choice of the Haredi Jews, or at least not more than their numbers are, not in an artificial way. Meaning, either they can express meaning there's the standard Aguda approach would be maintain the status quo, but the maintenance of the status quo cannot be democratically different from their own numbers. Cannot be democratically inconsistent with, meaning their political clout is in a democratic sense of how many people is how many voices. And like I said, the Haredi community is not united because a lot of people, for political reasons, choose to have no voice as conscientious objectors to the whole existence of the state, and see themselves more or less as refugees, as an indigenous people who are conquered and do not identify with Israeli society as a whole. I saw a video yesterday and I was sickened that Yaron Ruvain should post such a stupid video where this Zioni Koifer, Tuvia Tenenbaum, is basically equating Zionism with Judaism, and it's not. And equating Zionism with Jews and Israel with Jews, and it's not. And it's also an imperialistic mindset, which is wrong. Meaning it's two different things. A lot of people are upset. Well, why do, let's say, Satmar and Brisk and so forth, they have an organization, Natrina, and they call themselves the Torah True Jews, and people are like, well, is that a hegemony? No, it's excluding other Jews. To say that if you don't share our views, you're not the same type of ideology that we have, as opposed to the hegemony of the Zionists, who will say, you are one of us whether you like it or not. We own you. We represent you, even though you don't live in our country. And that's the question between the two. And so that's the difference, meaning the right wing will disenfranchise others and say, well, you're not Jews in the same way we are Jews. You want to call yourselves Jews, I can't deny you the right, but you're not Jews the way we are Jews, and you do not have the right to represent us as Jews. And the left, it's a different type of right, really. The Zionist side will say, no, we represent, meaning the Haredim will feel it's no skin off our back that you're not Jews. This is really going to be the crux of my whole argument here. We don't care if you're not Jews. We don't need you as Jews. We don't have any need for you. If you do not believe that the Torah is the Word of God, let's put Zionism aside and let's just have the basic dogmas of Orthodoxy. If you don't believe in God and that the Torah is the Word of God, you don't believe in the resurrection, you don't believe in the basic dogmas that there's going to be a din v'cheshbon, you don't believe in the basic dogmas of Judaism, your religion is not Judaism. You are not Gentiles, but you're also not really fully Jewish, in a sense. And we don't need you. We don't need you. And I feel that way. I would much rather have a pious convert than to have a treacherous and perfidious born Jew. But let's put that aside. Move on to a different subject. So, this article said basically like this, that it put in quotes, liberal Jews are just as close-minded as the right-wing Jews. And I would argue they're more close-minded. Because to me, it's no skin off my back if you're not Jewish. I don't care if you're Jewish or not. I don't, and it comes to another issue. We have to make sure we get to that issue. Whereas to them, it's an embarrassment to them that we're Jewish and not Jewish like they are Jewish. Meaning, to them, Judaism is communism, or so, I don't know. And the fact that we believe in God and the Bible, and that we're more similar to Christians than we are to them. We have more in common with Christians than we have in common with Reformed Jews, for the most part. There are some good Reformed Jews. That offends them. That makes them very uncomfortable. But a lot of those Reformed Jews wind up somewhere else. They wind up, davening in Chabad. Maybe they're not frum, but they daven, and the Orthodox shul should be more welcoming to a certain extent. Although it's good. If the problem with Chabad is that it's a cult, and if a more more normal mainstream modern Orthodoxy would embrace certain aspects of the Chabad, not ideology, but approach, and for the most part they do. It's just it's not so well known, and they don't have the propaganda that Chabad has. All right, well, that's neither here nor there. But it's a problem because Chabad is a dangerous cult, not because they're frum, but because of their, and not just because they think that the Rebbe is Mashiach. Their whole approach is cultish. I'm not here to insult Chabad because they do wonderful things, and certain people need stuff like that. There was a famous cult leader who passed away recently, and I recognize, he has a small following, a few hundred people, but I recognize that those people needed him because they had nowhere else to go. I mean, I know one family who escaped an abusive mother, a woman who was so evil that she framed her husband, who's a tzaddik, for a horrible, horrible crime that she herself was more or less guilty of, and she's free, and she works a cashier in a grocery store, and he's languishing in a federal prison with a 30-year sentence, and those kids had nowhere to go because no one else, they would be outcasts anywhere else, and they're good kids, intelligent, pious, wonderful, wonderful people, but who else would take them in other than this cult, and it was good for them. I know it sounds strange to say that, but it was good for them. That was where they needed to be. And so the same thing is Chabad. That's where they need to be for a lot of people, but there are a lot of people who are in there who I'm like, why an intelligent person like you in a place like this, I mean, and I see it, like in our community, there's, like a guy, he drives to shul anyway, but instead of driving to our shul, which is 2 miles from his house, he drives to a shul that hired a Chabad rabbi a number of years ago, who just totally ruined that shul. So he drives 10 miles, and whatever. All right, but this is an intelligent person. He's a psychologist. He should know better. I don't understand why he doesn't wind up in a more mainstream shul. But whatever, it's his loss and not ours. All right, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But this this article went on to discuss, I saw the headline article, and my feeling was, yes, not only are liberals as close-minded, liberal Jews as close-minded as the religious right, they're more close-minded because, first of all, just in the fact of the matter is that they're going to be, you're going to find that they are just it's like I said from the beginning, the right-wing Jews, it's no skin off, not the real, it depends which right, because there's more than one right. The alt-right, I guess you could call, in a sense, the libertarian right doesn't care, it's no skin off of my back what you do, just let me do what I want to do. Whereas the left is like, you have to be like me. And also the progressive right also is like, you got to be like me. And the libertarian right and the libertarian left are like, I don't care what you do, just let me be me. You know, but I remember, being approached by where I live. There was a shul. Our chief rabbi of our town, he was hired by a shul. It was an Orthodox shul, and then there was a coup within the shul. Really, that they decided to make a board meeting when all the Orthodox people were absent. They knew they couldn't make it, and to vote to decide that it should no longer be Orthodox. Now, the issue with doing something like that is that you're really stealing from the dead. I mean, if you want to make a conservative shul out of a vibrant Orthodox shul, which it was at the time, that welcomed everybody, but it was an Orthodox shul, and they decided just because it was the style at the time to be conservative. I'm not talking of that they really had no right to do that. You know, they're stealing from the dead. Now, if they wanted to make it a conservative shul, the people who wanted to make it conservative should have pooled their money together, made an offer to buy the shul, and start a new congregation in that building. That would be the ethical, moral thing to do if you want to bring it to a lower level. Just like if a church would want to buy a shul or whatever it is. I know I don't mean that to be offensive. I'm just talking realistically. You couldn't keep it the same congregational structure and just decide to do something different. If it's a fundamental of how it was founded, you'd have to go and buy the shul and transform it in that way. And really, it was illegal what they did in this shul. And it was immoral, and it was absolutely disgusting. You know, I mean, I understand there are other places they're struggling, so they're like, all right, we can't have a minyan unless we do this or that, and they make a decision. Still, it's a very difficult situation, and halachically it's an issue, but I can understand. But here it was a vibrant Orthodox shul. The rabbi turned this whole shul around from just being a summer shul to being an all-year shul. Transformed the shul, and yet I didn't transform it away from its founding, though. It maintained it as it was originally, and they just wouldn't have it. They didn't want to see them be successful. And so anyway, so then our rabbi, the chief rabbi of the town, he was approached by the members of the synagogue. At first they wanted to make a compromise. They said, well, could we have two services? Could we all week long have an Orthodox service? And on Shabbos, all right, you'll use upstairs, we'll use the downstairs, or we'll have different times or whatever, and we can share the same space. And they said no. They didn't want to compromise. They wanted to get rid of the Orthodox. So then the Orthodox people, they got together and they said, all right, the rabbi was smart enough to move out of the parsonage that the shul gave him originally, bought a house right behind the shul, and that's his home. He bought it, and we're going to make a minyan in the rabbi's basement. And then what did the quote-unquote liberal Jews do? They made lawsuits to try to get him shut down. And this is all over 40 years ago. So then what? So now what's the situation? So I entered into a friendly conversation with the president of this conservative shul, a woman, And all she could talk about is, well, why do the Orthodox have to have a mechitza? Meaning, she couldn't forgive us that we want to keep things in a traditional way. Now me, I'm open-minded enough to say, you know what, the mechitza is not in Shulchan Aruch. And I'm open-minded enough to say, you know what, the Gemara in Megillah says that women getting aliyahs, that's an issue of kavod and tzibur. To say you're not a heretic just because you don't want to have a mechitza and you want to give women aliyahs. Or even you want women to lead services. You're not a heretic. But this is a decision each congregation has to make on its own. Like the Gemara says, it's coveted tzibur. It's the honor of the congregation, meaning similarly to... Now, I will say that someone is a heretic because they changed the siddur. I wouldn't even say they're a heretic that they changed the siddur to have egalitarian wording, even though I think it's silly, and it's pointless. They want to mention, the matriarchs in the first blessing of Shemona Esrei. It's problematic, but it's not heretical. But then when you go to the second bracha of Shemona Esrei, and they eliminate Tchias HaMesim, they eliminate the resurrection, which is a fundamental dogma, that is, then they are a heretic. Because they deny a fundamental dogma of Judaism. Men's and women's issues are not fundamental, but the resurrection is fundamental. And so at that point, when they remove the resurrection, then it's no longer Judaism. But again, that's neither here nor there. But to me, I'm liberal enough to say, you can have your shul and we have our shul, and we can be good neighbors. We want to maintain a traditional, old-fashioned way. And it's our prerogative to do so, and you want to have egalitarian services. And halachically, it's not really a problem. It's just that we have different standards and you have different standards. I can be, even though a lot of Orthodox people will be uncomfortable with me saying this, but to me, I don't see much of a difference between the issue of egalitarianism and the issue of mechitza than a difference between how high a mechitza should be, and things like Chalav Yisrael and Chalav Stam, and I recognize that there are different views. I have my reasons why I think my view is probably right, that there is an obligation to keep Chalav Yisrael, but I'm open-minded enough to say that someone who adopts a more liberal view is within their right, and that's the standard of most American Orthodoxy. Is Chalav Stam, and a lot of things come down to just what are the accepted standards, meaning. But the thing is, there should be recognition that not everything that's the mainstream accepted standards are necessarily the halacha either, meaning the OU does not allow Kvinas Akum. And it makes sense that they should not allow Kvinas Akum, even though they allow what's ostensibly Chalav Akum, could be considered Chalav Akum, or they have this new invention of Chalav Stam. Also depends on what issues. I mean, certainly things like, and the question is, are a lot of these things in the same issues today as they were, because there have been changes in technology and so forth, meaning there are powdered milks that are made from non-kosher animals today, even though that wasn't the case in the old days. Cheese and butter and things like that, it used to be, could only be made from kosher animals, and now technology has changed that they can make cheese and butter and so forth from non-kosher animals. So does that change, certain things? And then there's Kabbalistic things and so forth, which are definitely not halacha. Meaning, if you want to follow them, and I do personally, and you want to say, like it's Timtum Alev and things like that. You want to say these type of things. I follow that, but I recognize that, butter, for example, according to most opinions, does not have to be Chalav Yisrael. And some people say it does, even today, and there are explanations. And Machmir Tavi Alav Bracha. If you're strict, you're blessed for being strict. It's the right thing to be strict, but it's not necessary. But just the same, not everything that's the OU's standards are necessarily the halacha either. Meaning, Gavinas Akum, can you eat a vegetarian pizza in a non-kosher restaurant, or can you eat fish in a non-kosher restaurant, and so forth? There is what to say that avoiding eating fish or avoid it in a non-kosher restaurant that you can clearly identify as kosher, or avoiding eating, any non-meat and non-wine products, even in a non-kosher restaurant, could be a chumrah and not the halacha. Particularly when we're discussing how do we define what's roy l'shulchan malachim, and bliyas, and all kinds of issues. There is what to say that people who eat this are not eating treif, but I wouldn't eat it. And there's also nothing wrong with a regular American modern Orthodox Jew also saying, I would not eat this, but you eating it, it's not bad. Also, part of it is what community you belong to. There are such things as communal standards, but part of it is halach and part of it's derech eretz, meaning halachically you can find excuses for a woman not to cover her hair, or for a man not to wear a yarmulke, to go bareheaded, and so forth. And all of these things are halachically sound. But the thing is when you are in your community, you have to follow the rules of your community. If you don't like those rules, you can still be 100% Orthodox in a different community, but there is an issue, al tifresh min hatzibur. You're not allowed to separate from the community. So if you belong to a particular community that has certain standards, to go onto lower standards is not okay. To go to higher standards is okay, because it says L'olam yasa adam atzmai talmid chacham. That, for example, the question of whether you could do malacha erev Pesach and erev Tisha B'av, and it says, if you go, it seems that not doing malacha is a chumrah, and if you're in a community, Mishnah says, where the standard is that people don't do malacha, and you come from a community where they do malacha, you're supposed to be machmir and not do malacha. If you come from a community where they don't do malacha, and you go to a community where they do malacha, also you're supposed to be machmir and not to do malacha. And it says never do malacha erev Pesach and erev Tisha B'av. And so no matter where they live. And then it says L'olam yosem atzmai talmid chacham. A person should always consider himself a talmid chacham and not do malacha. So it's the same thing. Meaning, from the Ikra Din, it's a minhag, it's a chumrah, you're allowed to do malacha. But if you come from a place where they don't do malacha, it's the same thing. If they don't eat gavinas akum, you can't eat gavinas akum in the place place where they do eat, if you come from a place where they don't eat Gvina Sakum, and you visit a place where they do eat Gvina Sakum, somewhere like in Italy, where there were certain Italian communities where they knew for sure that they used vegetarian enzymes, and that was their minhag. The Rambam was against it, but then again, the Rambam is not Chazal, and the Rambam himself admitted that it's not clear, the halacha. So halachically, one is allowed to be mekil, but it's an issue of what community you live in and what community you're visiting. And so, of course, it seems from the Mishnah that we should always practice the chumrah of either where we're coming from or where we're going. Meaning, but you can change your community. You can be matir neder, but it requires a taras nadarim. And but the thing is, someone who doesn't come from any community, or who comes from a community that has different standards, you follow the standards of the community, and there's good reasons to do that. Particularly, and there's good reasons to be strict. For example, you want other people to be able to eat in your house. So. Wait a second, did I get off the wrong exit? No, I think this is right. So anyway, so I'm open-minded enough to say the same thing even with issues of mechitza and egalitarian and this and that, because it does have halachic basis, but each community sets its own standards, and it seems that a lot of people in the conservative and reform cannot fargin. They can't stand the fact that the Orthodox want to maintain the old ways. The same thing you see. Some modern Orthodox people are so upset. Well, why do the Charedim have to keep Chol Yisrael? And why do the Charedim have to wear black hats? And why do they have to have glat and this and that? Why? Why not? Why not? We don't all have to be the same. I don't have a problem that you're different than me. This looks like the wrong exit. I have to be there by 11. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Both this and this are the words of the living God. And not everything's for everyone. We all have our own approaches. And we can do our own things, So, but this is what I thought when I saw this article with the quotations. Is it liberal or not? The liberal in quotations, pointing out that the so-called liberal Jews are not really liberal. But in the end, I found out that, although that's part of what he was saying, in reality, he was also kind of saying, well, he wanted to impose his views in a sense, and he wouldn't fargin them to have different views than him, so he's really just as guilty as the same thing. This particular person, he didn't mention till the end really who he was, but he said he grew up in the conservative movement. Oh, I am on the right place. Perfect. Oh, Hashem. And he was alienated by the conservative, and then he Reform, but he's really alienated by the Reform, and he made the whole issue about intermarriage. But what he left out is that he's a Kofer Baker, that he's a total atheist, and something that's totally fundamental to Judaism, he doesn't believe in. That he doesn't believe in God. So, I mean, the Reform and the Conservative, they're supposed to believe in God, I thought, certainly the Conservative. But he made it, it's just about intermarriage, and that there's a preference for intermarriage, and he was upset and whining that why does the Reform movement not allow intermarried rabbis? The Reconstructionists, they do it, and the Humanists, they do it. He's a humanist. It's a new one, the Humanist Judaism, which just boggles my mind. And the thing is, I can recognize that atheists are spiritual, but why do you want to call it Judaism? To me, that's just racism, except they say, well, anyone can call himself. Whoever wants to call himself Jewish can call themselves Jewish. You don't think that, according to them, it's not the mikveh and the bris and all this and belief in God and all that. Just call yourself Jewish and you're Jewish. Well, why? Why would you want to do that? What purpose could that serve? What purpose does Judaism serve if alright, I guess it's like a Echad Ha'am type of ideology, Like, and Echad Ha'am, he grew up in a frum Hasidic household, but like, can't see this guy behind me. Alright, but still, whatever. What? Where the hell am I? What did I just do? Wait a second. I'm going the wrong way now? Alright, I gotta turn around. Where the hell am I? How did I wind up here? Alright, I gotta figure out how I'm turning around. This was a big waste of time. Go east. I want to get back on the highway. I don't know what I did wrong I think I gotta stop this video so I can put on the GPS because I totally messed up. I don't want to finish the video. I'm in the middle. So this fellow, he's saying, how did I get back to 87 South? He's saying that, the Reform and Conservative are dying because they aren't embracing intermarriage enough, and they gotta just drop all their whole identity and just say it's whatever you want. It's whatever you want. That's what. But he doesn't mention the fact that he doesn't believe in God. But that's really the crux of the whole issue here, because to me, I don't care about Jewish survival. It's not my job. The Reform and the Conservative and the Federations and the Humanists and They all care about Jewish survival. I don't give a damn about Jewish survival. Why? Not because I don't care about it. It's because it's not my job. God, I believe in God. God promised us there would be Jewish survival. You know, God is not going to let this nation disappear off the face. I don't mean Israel, the country. I mean, this religion is promised to exist forever. And it's not my job to preserve Judaism for future generations. It's my job to live Judaism right now. And by living Judaism, that's going to preserve it, because I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to raise them to live Judaism, and hope that they go in path. It's not under my control. It'll hurt a lot if they don't. Wait a second, I gotta turn left here? Let's figure this out. I think I could do it without the GPS. I want to go east and south. So I don't have to turn left. Okay, oh shit. This is east. So I gotta turn over here. What's going on here? And I think that's really the crux of what this whole issue is. It's that I should have just taken the Tappan Zee. Now I'm going to have to pay this other toll. This whole thing with if I would have known that the Bear Mountain Bridge was closed, I would have... See, I need to use the GPS, but I want to make a video. It's worth it. Alright. So anyway, that's really the crux of this issue. Is they have no faith. They think it's their job to preserve Judaism. But why preserve Judaism? Did they ever stop and think about that? Why is Judaism worth... Oh. What makes Judaism worth preserving? You know, to me, if this is the word of God and it's making the world a better place, it's worth preserving. You know, one friend of mine just says only if it makes the world a better place. And he's certainly a person who believes in God. But he's like, if we just care about ourselves and we don't care about the world and we're not changing the world, what purpose do we have? So the left want to change the world in a radically different way, in the opposite direction of Judaism. The pious Jew, I see the world going in the right direction through Christianity. things that they have to shed are the pagan vestiges. And the problem is that the Jews have adopted many of these vestigial aspects. For example, first and foremost, nationalism, which is not the right. Where am I? This doesn't look familiar at all. And part of that is also because of this lack of faith. They don't believe, and I'm struggling with faith right now because I believe that God is guiding me where I'm supposed to be going. Because I'm going the wrong way. Maybe I should put on the GPS, but I really believe that this is more important. But now I'm just rambling, so maybe it's not as important as it was. So, to sum it up, I agree that there is tremendous... Yeah, I was supposed to turn right there. There is tremendous amount of hypocrisy from the left all over. They are not liberal. The left is not liberal. And many people on the right are more liberal than people on the left because I don't forgive other people. So what about this whole issue with the Koisel? So how should we approach that? To me, it's back like what I was saying before about Galus Yisrael. We're in Galus. If we don't recognize these people as Jewish in the way we are Jewish, we don't have any bias on them. And it's not our job. I think most people in Israel don't care, and they want to keep the status quo, and these, like women of the wall and whatever, are a small minority, smaller than the Haredi minority, who are also a minority, and Orthodoxy as a whole is not such a small minority, and most Orthodox agree with maintaining the status quo, and even most what we call the where the hell am I? I gotta get to the Bronx. Even most of what we call Masorti in Israel, especially the Sephardi Masorti, most of what the Israeli Sephardi Masorti people are what in America we call modern Orthodox. In fact, some people, the modern Orthodox in America, are to the left of those people. So we just got to be realistic about what's really going on here. I got to be realistic and put on the GPS. This is not working. So, because I got to be there at least by 11. I'm already 20 minutes late, but I can't be an hour late. So my answer, it's like that. You know, how do we balance? How do we? I don't have answers to these things. I'm just pointing out, just trying to be a bit of a gadfly, pointing out the hypocrisy on both sides. is then people just give up. But we don't have to like give up. We could like